Welcome to Exile and Bookbill's Booksellers on Tap reading series. My name is Javier Ramirez, and along with Kristen Gilbert, we co-run Exile and Bookbill, a virtual shop at the moment with a solid plan to become a real-life bookstore in Chicago very, very soon. Now, you know, we host our fair share of virtual events featuring some of our favorite writers, but these bookseller chats are the ones I truly get excited about. It gives us booksellers a chance to do what we usually do at conferences at least twice a year, and that is catch up on what we're reading, how our bookstores are faring, but more importantly, having a cocktail together. This episode of Booksellers on Tap is extra special though, because we have the New York Times bestselling author of Group, How One Therapist and a Circle of Strangers Saved My Life, Christie Tate, here as an honorary bookseller. Welcome, Christie. Christie, there's going to be a knighting ceremony and maybe a hazing, midnight hazing, just so you know, later tonight involving everybody here. Joining Christie tonight will be bookstore owners extraordinaire Allie Levy from Still North Books and Bar in Hanover, New Hampshire, and Hannah Harlow from Bookshop of Beverly Farms in Beverly, Massachusetts. Nick Buzanski, my co-host tonight, is no slouch either. He's the general manager of Books Are Magic in Brooklyn, and he's running late, but may join us later. So let's hope he gets it done. Before we get started, I want to let everyone know that we will list each store's website in the chat should you want to purchase any of the books discussed tonight. Welcome everyone, and let's jump right in. And real quick before we start, for anyone that didn't have the sense to tune in tonight and will watch at a later date, we'll have our guests tell you where they're from and how you can buy books from them. Let's start with Hannah. Harlow.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. It sounds like it's such a 1940s noir name, you should be a gumshoe or something in some.
I married
your next
yes.
project. You did. Tell us about you and your store.
Yeah, so I co-own the Bookshop of Beverly Farms. My brother is my co-owner, but I run the store in the day-to-day, but he helps out from afar. And we bought the store just over a year ago, in January 2020. And at that point, I left my job. I'd worked in publishing for 17 years, the whole time at Houghton Mifflin Harcourt. But I wanted a change. And this store was, I saw it was for sale in the fall of 2019. So we started exploring that option. The owners had, the store's been there since 1968. And the former owners had owned it for 27 years and they were ready to retire. And it was just like a great situation. And it's a great community. And so even though we kind of reopened the doors on February 3rd and then closed them about a month later, we still, we did okay last year. And it's a good book town. It's the former neighborhood of John Updike. So we have like a nice literary history, and we got a cat and named it Rabbit. So we're having a good time.
Is it general, or do you guys have a specific?
We're small, so it's 1,100 square feet. And we have one room, like a children's room, and then the main room is, all adult stuff. And there's actually 2 bookstores in our town, and it's pretty awesome. Like, we're very, of course, friendly, and we've sort of we have our areas of interest. So like we're big on literary fiction and kind of the current bestsellers, and they're amazing at like sci-fi and fantasy and romance. And so, people kind of know what we do and come to us for those kind of recommendations. So it's nice.
Thanks for being here. And we're going to do this round robin. We'll go one book at a time with our guests. Tell us about your first book, why you love it so much.
My first book is Open Water by, I haven't actually tried to say his name, Caleb Azuma Nelson. So this just came out last month. And to be honest, I'm not even done with it, but I love it so much that I wanted to talk about it. It's really beautiful. It's about 2 young artists who are kind of falling in love. Like, they started as friends, and it's sort of like the timing's never right, and they're just friends, and then they become lovers. But it's so, the writing is incredible, and it makes me feel young again reading about these awesome youngsters, and there's great like pop culture references, and somehow, I think it's really hard to write about current music and novels because it can date the book so easily, but somehow like the way he writes about current music, it just feels really timeless. And so they're both Black and living in London. And I think what's interesting to me is reading about the Black experience in London is I guess I just thought it would be like a little bit different, but they have it's a lot of the same issues that we're experiencing in America. And so yeah, I've just been loving it.
I think I have that book somewhere in the big pile of books we have here. And
well, I picked it up because I was like, it's so little, I'm just gonna do this quick read, and like it's actually taking me a really long time to read it because I just like I've been sort of savoring like each paragraph.
And I love the music aspect of our to those who aren't aware, our bookstore name is a nod to Liz Phair's Exile in Guyville, and so anything that has music, any novel that has music in it, I'm automatically drawn to. So I will make sure to pick that up. Thank you. And is it a debut?
It's a debut, yeah.
Cool.
It seems like it's probably a little bit autobiographical because he's a photographer and writer, and the character in the novel is a photographer and writer.
No mistaking that there. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Allie, tell us a little bit about your store and yourself.
Yeah, so I own Still North Books and Bar in Hanover, New Hampshire, which is the town where Dartmouth is located. And in 2018, I was also working at Houghton. This is Phineas. He really would like to be here with us. I was also working at Houghton. I was living in New York. I was really missing Vermont and New Hampshire. Amanda, I think you met Phineas at Winter Institute, maybe as well. And I just really missed bookselling. I had previously been a bookseller and event coordinator at BookBar in Denver, Colorado, and had started to kind of have this fantasy of moving back to the Upper Valley and opening a bookstore. And right around the same time, I heard that the Dartmouth bookstore was closing, which was run by Barnes and Noble College. And so I started working on bringing an indie to Hanover, since there hadn't been an indie since B&N had taken over the Dartmouth bookstore. We are bookstore, cafe, and bar, though through the pandemic, bookstore has really been the focus, since, cafe, not a great time to run a cafe, though we are bringing that back online now. And it's been good. I mean, we opened in December 2019. So similar shoes to Hannah, really close to when the pandemic began, but we've been embraced really quickly by our community, which I couldn't ask for more.
Having been a bookseller before, I mean, is there anything that surprised you about doing your own thing and that you didn't see coming? Or were there a lot of things?
So many things. I knew that it was going to be, I had bookselling experience. So I was not one of those people who thinks that they're going to sit at a desk and read books all day by any means, but I think I still did not quite grasp just how different it would be to own my own store as opposed to helping to run a store. So there's been a learning curve, but I felt really fortunate to have a really great support system, especially through this pandemic year. But as for specifics, I guess how much time the bookkeeping takes. Hannah and I talk about this all the time, on like 3 occasions, but we're like, how do we do this or how do I do this in a less time consuming manner? So I'm glad that I didn't think about the bookkeeping before deciding to open my own store, because I might not have done it.
It's true. Invoicing is crazy.
Yeah.
Publishers are insane.
It must be that way in all industries. I feel sometimes I'm like, it can't just be bookselling that this is like this. But then when I'm, doing invoicing for or entering invoices for the cafe, it really is a lot less time consuming. So I guess we're justified to complain.
I think you are, yes. So what do you want to talk about? What's your first book?
Let's see. First one, I have talked about this one ad nauseum this year, but I just felt like it was appropriate to start with it. The Shame by Mckenna Goodman. She is a Vermont author, and it's I tend to be a very like single-minded bookseller. And so, instead of doing the thing that I'm supposed to do, which is listening to what people are actually wanting to read, I tend to just tell everybody about the same single book because I'm so excited about it. And The Shame was one of those books for me. It is about a woman living in Vermont. It starts out, she's in her car and she's driving to New York, and it's told in recollections about where she's headed, why she's going there. It turns out that there's this woman who she's kind of become really fascinated with, and she has this just kind of fantasy about escaping her life. And the writing is super internal. It's just like so well observed. There are just these tiny little thought details that it's just stunning to me that this is McKenna's first book. I found it to be a really intense read, which I was just saying earlier, I need to stop describing books as intense. Surely I can find better words, but for me, this one was very intense, but also I think it's kind of like a mirror. Different people see different things in it, which is always the case with literature, but especially in this case, because that's kind of the content of what the author is exploring. So some people find it really funny. Some people find it really cringy. I found it intense and just wonderful.
And that was a debut, correct, as well, right?
It is a debut, and it's really, really tiny,
I love a
which
short
sometimes
book.
is all I have the attention for.
Yeah, I like.
But she
like
packs a lot
225.
in.
Yeah, I love that. Like a 225, 240 page book. It's like right in my wheelhouse. And who published that?
Totally.
Just out of.
It is Milkweed.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Christie Tate, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I feel so honored to be with Booksellers. I would say that the most surprising part of publishing a book is seeing behind the scenes of the bookseller network. It's like doctors. It's like super intense and full of like just good people who read. It's awesome.
Tell us a little bit about Group. I think everyone knows, but let's talk about Group for a second.
Sure.
You have lots of fans out there.
Yeah, Group. Oh my gosh, Group is the story of how I was able to learn how to let go of complete overachievement and having a good life on paper to having a good internal life, connections. I didn't have friendships. I had a good resume and I didn't know how to connect with people. And so I found myself in the world of a fairly unorthodox therapist who ran groups, and he just slid me in there and I had no idea what I was getting into. And the book sort of tells about how I began first to have relationships in group and with the therapist. And then after some ups and downs, I was able to take this show on the road and have relationships outside of the therapeutic setting.
Awesome. Yeah, and it comes out in paperback soon, correct?
Yeah, I think in June. I don't have the exact date, but it's coming. Nice beach read, bendy bendy.
There you go. bendy, it's great. Well, thank you for being here tonight, and we're happy to have you as an honorary bookseller tonight. Tell us about your first book.
So I have a very strong attachment to books that I saw come out during the pandemic. And maybe this happens every year. I just was paying more attention because I was a debut. Books that I was like, oh my God, why aren't people talking about this? So my first one is The Secret Lives of Church Ladies. And it certainly got its share of buzz as a National Book Award finalist. But what I really love, also a skinny book. I read it in one day after I worked the whole day. And then everybody was sort of like in my house was like laid out watching TV or whatever. And I just sat and read the whole book. And I hadn't read a whole book in years. What I love about it is I fell in love with the characters. It's short stories. And I've always felt like I was supposed to love short stories more than I do. Like I'm supposed to love Alice Munro. And I certainly admire her work along with Lori Moore and Danielle Evans and the great short story writers. But I've never had a collection just grab me by the heart and just pull me from page one to the very end. And that was my experience with all of Disha Philya's characters. And it was so fun and so racy and quick. I think I didn't feel like, it felt like effervescent in a way that sometimes I feel short stories are so full of craft and like that I feel the effort in them. And this was just deep and quick. And I feel like there are two stories in here. One of them is epistolary, and it's so good. I will never, ever, ever forget it. And I don't think I can say that about any other short story except maybe Flannery O'Connor. And that's because I wrote a paper on it in high school.
That collection is, I can't think of another book last year that had hit everyone out of nowhere. Like I have a friend who was on the National Book Award, a judge last year for fiction, and we were able to talk about it afterwards, and she said that it was a favorite from the get-go. I can say that, and the National Book Foundation won't come down on me, but they were super excited from the get-go. Like it was one that just like from start to finish, everyone was
And
behind.
it's a university press pub, right?
Yes, yeah, exactly, yeah,
So cool.
yeah.
West Virginia.
Yeah, and I'm so excited about that book. I wanted to ask a question. I guess my next question I want to ask when we get started with Hannah is, and if you're not, it's okay, but what are you enjoying, a cocktail or a glass of wine or anything tonight?
I am. This is my beverage. I haven't had an alcoholic drink in 2 years, which,
Oh, good for you.
yeah, which is great. I feel great about it, but it's insanely boring. Like I just drink so much water, like an ungodly amount of seltzer, and I just get so bored with myself. So tonight, to like spice things up, when I'm like feeling really crazy, I add a little lemonade to my seltzer. It's so exciting, and some bitters.
It sounds very refreshing.
Cherry flavored bitters. It's so refreshing. It's delicious, but it's not quite as exciting as you want it to be.
That's where you make it up with your next choice.
Cool. I'm gonna go spicy for my next choice. Like I was trying to decide, should I go future pub or past pub? I'm gonna go past. I'm gonna talk about In at the Deep End by Kate Davies, which is so it came out in hardcover like 2 years ago. I think it came out in paperback last year or so. And I was new to my bookstore last year, and I was like I was playing it a little cautiously because I don't know my customers yet, and I didn't want that. I don't know this book. I can't talk about it without blushing. So I was like, how am I going to talk to these new customers about this book? And then what are they going to think of me, if they actually buy it? But then I started, like more recently, I realized we've sold a ton of red, white, and royal blue. And so I was like, you know what, if we can sell that book, I can certainly sell this book, which is so awesome. And I don't think it got enough attention. I will also say the US editor is on the call right now, and is also Christie's editor. So I'm psyched that she's here. So this book, it's like Bridget Jones, if Bridget Jones had discovered that she was a lesbian and then went out and had like lots of great sex. And so it's hilarious. And the main character, it starts out and she's been like dating dudes her whole life. And then she goes to a party and she has sex with a woman and she's like, oh my God, I didn't know sex could be this great. I think I'm gay. And so then she like, goes out and discovers a wonderful gay sex life. And like, as a straight woman, I learned so much. It was great. So it's I'm blushing, see, just thinking about it. It's so fun and funny. And then it does get more serious. She gets into this relationship that becomes kind of a controlling relationship. And so it does get a little bit darker towards the end, but it's just like, it's fun. Like you laugh out loud when you're reading it. And it's great. And like I said, and Kate Davies is wonderful. She's worked in publishing for a while, and I think she was like writing children's books or something. And then somehow she wrote this. It's great. I don't know. So highly recommend. Also, I think a lot of people had, you guys maybe experienced this with your customers. Everyone wanted like a feel-good read this year. And I think this fits the bill.
Which is always tough, doesn't matter whether there's a pandemic in place, people always want to be honest, it's always tough to go, because I read a lot of sad, depressing stuff. But even trying to find something fictionalized, yeah, exactly. But sometimes it's kind of hard. So it's nice when something comes along that you really like that also has that message to it. I want to ask you, Hannah, really quick, what, coming from publishing and then opening a bookstore, it's all the same fabric, right? We're all in the same boat, kind of.
Yeah.
But what was the biggest transition? Like, what was the biggest thing that surprised you going from that to that? I mean, because Allie had said earlier, like, you were a great marketing person and you can market books, but it's different talking in front of customers about books you love.
It is. Well, and also, I mean, the biggest thing is that was like, this is an HMH book. And that is, I read kind of exclusively HMH for like so many years. And the first couple weeks in the store, I was just like this, like, people were asking for recommendations, and I was just like, all I've got is HMH. Like, I really need to expand my horizons here. So, I mean, it's been really great. And I thought too, I'd be like, oh, I can just read whatever I want now, but that's actually not totally true at all. So I have been getting frustrated. I'm like, there are all these other books I want to read, but I have to read these. Like, I have these responsibilities. So yeah, I mean, I think my knowledge of books has had to go a lot deeper and broader. Like, I can't just be like, I love literary fiction and that's all I'm going to talk about. Because some people walk in the store and they're like, I read history, and I'm like, oh God, okay. Like, I guess we have some, nonfiction around here somewhere.
I hope you have coworkers you can go.
I actually don't. I mean, I do now, but for a while it was just me.
Because that's always nice to go, oh, Jim loves, come over here, Jim. And Jim doesn't like to talk to people, but he has to talk about history. So yeah. Well,
yeah.
we're glad you're here.
Yeah, I think I fake it pretty well, I think. But
It's a skill, right? You can work they want keywords.
Yes, totally.
Out there. And we work really hard at doing that. Like, we're around the books a lot. So.
Well, and you figure out quick how well you know your inventory.
That's true. Yeah. Especially with a small store. Like 1,100, 1,200 square foot store is so perfect.
It's great. Yeah, I mean, I do. I know every book in it. Yeah, I know where it is. It's awesome.
People are impressed when customers are impressed when they walk up and ask if you have a book, and you don't look it up. You walk right over and pick it up, and it's really impressive. So thank you. Allie.
Yes. Next book. Okay.
How are you?
I'm
doing
good.
Are you once again, no pressure, but it's mandatory. It's not mandatory, but are you having a cocktail or a beer?
I am. I tried something new tonight. It's a green is gold lemon tonic cider. I think I thought it was Vermonty, but it's not. I'm in New Hampshire, right on the border of New Hampshire and Vermont, and the marketing got me because it's just a really pretty label. It is a cider that has some lemon and botanicals in it, and I haven't had a drink in 2 weeks. It's not in quite 2 years, but figured for tonight I would have a cider. It's pretty good. Cheers. And the label's making me real happy.
So what do you have? What's up next for you?
Let's see. I'm debating what to do next. I'm going to do, while we're on the Houghton train, I'm going to talk about another Houghton book, also shares an editor. So Dietland. I first encountered this, I think when I got into my cube on my first day at Houghton, there was a copy there. And then it was recommended to me by my therapist. And it is about so I finally picked it up because I was like, I have this book at work, I might as well read this. It's about a woman who is working at a magazine, ghost writing responses to letters to the editor. She's in a larger body, and she discovers this kind of underground group of people who inspire her to see that it's okay to be in a larger body. It's a super fun read, but it's got it is a light book in some regards. There's a plot and it moves quickly, but then there's this message behind it that really was in conjunction with a lot of other materials, something that really just helped me change my relationship to my body. But then I also just had a lot of fun reading it. So it also became an AMC original series, which that was fun. I missed the Dietland movie or TV tie-in edition. That was a fun time of life. But yeah, it's really, I think it does a great job at talking about health at every size in a way that is still, even though it's more mainstream, it's still not super mainstream. I think it was super ahead of its time. And it's really cool to see a book be so responsible with body image and just so real with it.
Awesome. Who is in the crowd? Who's in the audience? Is there an HMH editor or something?
Former.
So
Who is it?
Lauren Ween was at HMH
Oh.
with us, and she edited Dietland. And she was the US editor for In at the Deep End. And then she moved to Simon & Schuster. And
Oh, awesome. Say hello if you want to.
Sorry, hi everybody.
Thanks for being here.
hi, Lauren.
I just said to my husband, is this like my funeral or something? I am, like I've never been.
This is your life.
I'm like crying happy tears, but I think I am also dead. Because I have never been so happy in my entire life to see like all of you people talking about so many of my favorite books. So thank you.
Well, thanks for being here.
Thanks for.
It's an intervention. Christie.
All right, so I'm also sober, super boring. Sometimes I get fancy with the LaCroix karate, but I left it in the other room. So I think I saw a tweet the other day that said the human body is 80% LaCroix. So true. How do they know? All right, my next book is Girlhood by Melissa Febos, and it's recently out. I think it came out in March. And what I love about it is I've read her other two books, Whip Smart. Yeah, that one was, I heard about that one on NPR and I was like, ooh, and it was about her experiences as a dom in a S&M dungeon. And I had no idea, I could not have seen into the future what her writing career was. And then Abandon Me was also essays, and they were really smart, and I had to think really hard, and I liked that. And what I love about Girlhood is it's also very, very smart, and it really, she drops the pin on these experiences in her girlhood where she changed from being like subject to object, and she really looks at them, and she ties in, even from the very first essay, she ties in things that happened in the dungeon with things that happened in her growing up, like when she was 12 and there was a boy down the street. And I think she's so smart. and still so accessible. She takes me right to the line of like a sort of an academic feeling, and she brings in Greek and mythology, and the payoff is, every single essay has the payoff that I really love when I read an essay and on the subject of like when girls become women who are sad or oppressed. She really is looking at that. And she's also changed her mind on some of the things that she's thought in her earlier work, which I haven't, like, she's one of the first writers where I jumped in like on the ground floor and have followed all along. And so the pleasure in seeing her develop and her thinking develop is there in every essay. So I highly recommend that one too.
I almost also brought Girlhood here.
Ah,
It's so good. Her like it's just so satisfying how
Yeah.
she pulls in all of these different threads, and just like following her brain through a single essay is like such a treat. We're doing a event with her and Alex Chi
Oh.
next week.
oh
Oh my
yeah.
gosh, that's awesome. Wow.
Yeah, super
That's big.
excited about that.
Well, Christy bought that
Um,
book from my store because she's awesome.
Yeah, well, you were awesome to send it to me.
I mean, late. It arrived late. It was delayed by the publisher. I was horrified. She pre-ordered it. And so it came late. And I'm sorry.
Well, everybody has a stack this high next to their bed, including me. So
Yeah.
it was not missed.
Oh, thanks a lot. Hannah, I
Yeah,
have a question for you before you get to your next book.
cool.
I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about music and stuff, given the name of our bookstore. What was your first concert that you went to on your own?
I like my first one. I think it's my first. I don't know if it's just I like it being my first, so I've made it my first. It was the Lemonheads. Like,
Nice.
yeah, which I thought was pretty good. It was like, at like a college, like I felt cool.
Yeah. Where were you? Do you remember what city you were in?
I believe it was Lowell, University of Lowell, Massachusetts.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I love when people have their, and we ask this question all the time, and I love that people have no shame sometimes. They'll talk about their first concert, even though they don't want to, but they
Yes.
so you have pride in it, right? It's your first concert, the one you went to, you
Yeah.
paid your own money for, and yeah, there's something to that. All right. So what is your next book?
My next one, I keep trying to decide what to go with next. So my next one is actually like, I'm talking about two at the same time because they're kind of in the same category. So last year I went, like, I think like a lot of people, I had a period of time where I was struggling to read. Like I just like couldn't, I had no attention span. This was kind of like right last spring, April, about a year ago, April, May. And an editor sent me a bound manuscript of this book, which just came out like this week. And it was kind of one of the first books that like got me over that hill where I was like, okay, I can read again. And I don't read like a ton of thrillers, but these are both thrillers. So this is The Last Thing He Told Me, by Laura Dave. And the other one I'll mention is Northern Spy by Flynn. So these are both thrillers. And so I've been reading more, like a little bit more books like this year, where like I just need some page turners. And these are both really good page turners, like great thrillers that move. And I think they both have really excellent writing. So it doesn't like, you're not giving anything up. I can be a little snobby sometimes. I'm sorry if that sounds snobby, but I think these are both very well written. And they both have some good like mom elements. So I have two kids, and Northern Spy. So now I'm switching gears here. Northern Spy, the character is a new mom. And it's been a while actually since I was a new mom, but I thought she nailed those elements so well. So it's about this new mom who discovers that her sister might be involved in the IRA. They live in Northern Ireland. And so then it's like new mom stuff, but spies and IRA, and like things are blowing up. So I don't know, I learned a lot about what it was like to live in Northern Ireland. I hadn't really thought about the day to day, and it was like a kind of harrowing. So that was great. And then going back to the last thing he told me, so this is about a woman. She's married a man, and he had a daughter from a previous relationship. So she doesn't have like this awesome relationship with her stepdaughter. And so she's kind of like trying to be a good mom. And so the book starts, and she discovers her husband is not who she thought he was. He has these secrets. And so she and the stepdaughter are like trying to save the dad from this trouble that he's gotten into, and like figure out the mystery of like his past. And it's just, it's very well done. And I will tell you, without giving, I don't want to give anything away, but like the last line, like the last word of this novel, like killed me. So you have to make it all the way through. It's like, it's so good. It's one of those things where there's just like this awesome payoff in the end.
I do love a good thriller and mystery, and I do like sort of go between like reading something just for pleasure or just reading something, trying to get something out of it. And I just finished, it comes out in July, I think, The Comfort of Monsters. It's a debut, I believe, a writer out of Milwaukee, and it takes place during the summer of Dahmer. And it's about this young woman who is her sister goes missing at the same time during the Dahmer murders. And so she's trying to find out what happened to her sister, and goes back and forth in time. But I expected something entirely different out of it. I expected it to be very Dahmer heavy, but that was sort of a backdrop to everything. And it was kind of genius. And it's more about her trying to find her sister and family secrets. It reminded me a lot of like Sharp Objects, or to some extent, Eileen by Tessa Moshfegh. Just like the main characters have these just troubled, you want to care about them so much, and they just keep making the wrong decisions. But yeah, it was, it satisfied that thing that reading a good thriller, but also very well written, and it was less a thriller than more of a like literary fiction. So it really surprised me, and it was great. But I do like that, and I like those. I've heard good things about the second book with the dark cover on it. And
Northern Spy, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that one too, I think that was part of it, was like, I love when you're surprised by a book, like I just kind of picked it up and I was like, whoa, this is so good.
Yeah, and we see so much, and it's hard to like make those, right, to find the right book to read at that right time. And you have to pick that other book up at some point or something. So yeah, well, thank you so much. Allie, have you been to your first concert yet, or did it happen a long time ago?
It was last week, just kidding. There's a pandemic.
During the pandemic,
yeah. My first concert was a Tori Amos concert.
Oh, nice. Wow, you win tonight. That's
it was great. Yeah, I really had an intense Tori Amos phase in high school, which has been like recently coming back. I think I had this like period of time, I don't know why, in like college and just after college, or I guess really through my 20s, where I was like, kind of thought that Tori was Amanda. That I like had bad taste in music because none of my friends also liked Tori except for like my two friends. And then I started listening to her music again kind of recently, actually, in the store, because there were no customers for a while, and I could listen to anything that I want. And I was like, oh my God, this is so good. Like, so I've had a bit of a resurgence in my love for Tori.
Yeah, she's fantastic, and I'm a huge fan of cover songs. I'm constantly like updating my list, and she does a really good, I forget which
like
Nirvana
song.
Yes, yeah. I mean,
it's
and
so
she was already. I've worked for Tower Records for a long time, and we would sell sheet music, or like sheet music for like famous bands, and she was always like, her piano sheet music was always at the top of the list.
Oh yeah,
of
I
people
was
would
one of your
love.
major customers of Tori
Which one? Which?
piano sheet music.
Yeah, seriously, like everyone, it was like Tori Amos, the Beatles, Rolling Stones. I mean, she was always right up on top.
Because she
So what do you have
play piano.
Yeah,
Next,
exactly.
so I was debating whether or not to do this because I was like, am I just sucking up to Christie and Lauren? So I'm not going to talk about group, but I love group so much. I think a lot of booksellers have kind of subgenres of like, here's this genre that like I am just inexplicably drawn to and I will read everything in it. And for me, that is books about therapy. And so group obviously like just hit the spot for me. I read it at the start of the pandemic, but I wanted to talk about one of my lesser known books about therapy. So I don't know if anyone has read The Impossibility of Sex. Okay, so Susie Orbach, she's a psychoanalyst. She's married to, who is she married to? She is married to a famous writer who I can't remember right now. But that just made it all the more fascinating. So she is writing.
Jeanette Winterson.
Yes, that's who it is. Thank you, Lauren.
And everyone should read Why Be Happy When You Should Be Normal, because that's an amazing book too.
I
Put that on
haven't
your
read
list.
that one.
Amazing.
I need to, okay. I don't have a pen. Okay. So The Impossibility of Sex. One thing I like about group a lot is that I'm talking about group now. I like that it's from the patient's perspective. I feel like there's not enough books about therapy from the patient perspective. So thank you for writing that and proving that it can be interesting and that it's not just a personal journey that doesn't have relevance outside of that. This does not do that. This is from the therapist perspective. I like it because it is combining that like pulling back the curtain, like how is psychotherapy working, but it also has like a little bit of the juicy like stories about therapy, and it's really focusing on the therapeutic relationship. And there's a lot about transference and countertransference in here and how it works. And so she's super brave and feel like she talks about her sexual or erotic countertransference, excuse me, I can use the right terminology, for a patient and exploring what that means. And it's, and kind of, celebrating that and saying that's part of what makes therapy work, and that it's okay. And I think that she does it in a way that is super engaging. So for a deeper cut therapy book, Impossibility of Sex.
I like the deep cuts. I love when somebody brings up a deep cut. Thank you so much. Christie, it's hard to follow up that concert, but what was your first?
Well, I've been
It
waiting.
better be good or bad.
I've been waiting for this question for 32 years, so thank you for asking. So when I was 15, I think that math works. When I was 15, I got scammed because I really wanted to see Michael Jackson. I think I'm older than all of y'all. I wanted to see Michael Jackson, so I called a number in the Dallas Morning News and I gave them my mom's credit card, and it was a scam. And I was heartbroken. It was going to be my first concert, right? I think it was the one with the brothers and they had the sword and the stone, whatever. Anyway, so as a compensation or consolation prize, I went to go see Terrence Trent D'Arby, the song The Wishing Well, right? Okay.
Kiss and Tell.
Yes, which I was like, right? Terrence Trent D'Arby has never been accused. There's no documentaries about his weird sex life. And so I feel like I really dodged a bullet there. I'm not sure my mom feels like that even to this day after I stole her credit card to buy fake Michael Jackson tickets. Anyway, Terrence Trent D'Arby.
That's fantastic.
In Dallas. It's not Tori Amos, but it's something.
No, it's Terrence Trent D'Arby.
So I just want you all to know that this night has convinced me that my husband and I need to open a bookstore. He needs to do the bookkeeping part, the Excel, whatever involves Excel spreadsheets, that's his job. My job will be to talk to customers, our customers, sorry. I guess I need that Impossibility of Sex book. Okay, anyway, so my subgenre as a bookseller will be auto fiction. I think that's what it's called. Like when it's a memoir, but it's called a novel. I'm sure there's a technical term for that. But so the book that I chose is No One Is Talking About This by Patricia Lockwood. I really loved it. As I understand it, the things in the novel happened to her. What I love about it is this exploration of grief, and her sister had a baby who was born with a terminal illness, and she was not long for this world. And we watch Patricia make these decisions about being with her and what it's like to bear witness. That's what I love. It's a side of grief that I feel like it's not exactly head on. Like she's not the mother of the baby, she's the aunt of the baby and the sister of the hurting mother. But grief is obviously very, very real, but it's not a story I'm familiar with. This sort of the peripheral family member who moves into the heart center. And I think that's something fresh. And also the beginning of the book is sort of experimental. She's making a lot of observations about the world of the internet and what social media is doing to us. And there's these it's like little paragraphs, and Lockwood was originally a poet. So the language is just completely gorgeous, line after line after line in her insights. And she's just so cool. And then there's sort of like a record scratch midway through, because her sister's baby is so sick and she drops everything to do real life. So there's a ton of layers here. There's the meta layer of what is social media doing? What happens when crisis intervenes? And none of the likes and the popularity and the virality and the observations we make online, they don't mean anything when there's a dying baby in the family. I'm making it sound really sad. It's more tender than sad, and it's not triumphant because that's overstating it, but it's just an exploration of a relationship to grief and family that I haven't seen done. And there's not one shred of maudlin or schmaltz. It's all very, very smart and tender, which is very hard line to walk. So I can't say. And I feel like the cover of this book is so weird, and you wouldn't know what's in there. What's in there is tender and loving and colorful. And I feel like I don't know what happened there, but I'm afraid that it's turning people off. It could really use what she's doing in there.
Well, I don't know if you guys, maybe Allie, you remember this when Christie Tate came out and they sent out the ARCs, the advanced readers copies for them. I think everyone on staff was so freaked out by the cover because it was
like the necklace, because the hardcover
yes,
was different.
Yeah. We were all sort of like, I kind of want to read this, but that's just a weird looking cover. And then we all read it, absolutely loved it. It was incredible. I judged the Kirkus Nonfiction Prize in 2017, and they flew us out to Austin she was a finalist for Christie Tate, and they flew us out to Austin for the judges out and the finalists. And there was a party at someone's loft apartment, took up an entire floor, and I was up there and I went into a room I wasn't supposed to be in, and I was looking at some rare books, and there was a wine room, and I'm looking at these rare books, and somebody over my shoulder goes, "I don't think we're supposed to be in here." And it was Patricia Lockwood. We had this weird moment. We were sort of in a room and waiting for somebody. We just kept looking around until somebody came in and said, "You guys should probably come back into this room over here." But it was kind of fun. We had a little bit of a moment, and she was really funny, and it was awesome to meet her, in that way. So yeah, that was great. I haven't read the new one yet, but we have a copy here. But as you know, there's just so much things get piled up, and eventually I will get to it. Hannah, real quick before we get to your next pick, and maybe it could be the last. If we go over a few minutes, are you guys okay with that? If you have to leave, it's okay as well. If for those of our viewers who will watch this later, can you just tell everyone where they can order books that you talked about
Sure.
from your store?
we have a website, and the address is bookshopofbeverlyfarms.com. A little long, but it's the name of the store. And you can order books online there.
Awesome. And I have one more question for the three of you before we end this. We talked about Dietland and the adaptation of it. Allie, do you guys have a favorite adaptation, whether it's a movie or TV show? Could be coming out. There's so many adaptations coming out all the time.
Well, my next pick was going to be the Underground Railroad, which I picked because the adaptation, I think it's by Barry Jenkins. It's airing, I think, in 2 weeks, and it's getting a lot of buzz. I think it's going to be awesome. And
I had no idea it was.
It's hard to picture, but it's got the actor, William Harper Jackson, whoever played Chidi on The Good Place. He's in it. I heard him talking about it. And so I think it's on probably HBO. I don't know. We don't have any of that. So I'm going to have to buy it to watch the Underground Railroad.
I didn't know it was a thing. Wow. What about you, Hannah?
I loved the Sally Rooney adaptation, Normal People. I thought it was as good as the book, maybe even better.
Wow.
Like I loved
the book.
it.
I haven't seen
I liked
it.
the book a lot, but I loved that show.
Oh, interesting. Huh.
And I don't say that often. I very rarely.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Like
Right. It's either
better.
it's either on its own or it's not as good as.
Yeah.
They miss the key elements. I'm excited to watch Made for Love, which was one of my favorite. Fun. I mean, you're talking about funny, feel good, I guess. Feel good? I don't know if feel good's the right word, but it was absolutely hilarious. And I like the actress in that. So I'm excited to watch that. But tell us about your next pick.
So my next pick. So if I have a subgenre, maybe it's poets turned memoirists or poets turned novelists, which I haven't read Patricia Lockwood's book yet, so I feel like I really need to read that. But I don't know, you just say like this poet wrote this long form, and I'm like, oh my God, I have to read it. That sounds amazing. Just because like there's going to be this like precision of language and an attention to detail, I guess. So I gave away my ARC, but I printed out the cover so you guys could see. So Punch Me Up to the Gods by Brian Broom is a memoir that's coming out May 18th. And I just thought it was really beautiful. I mean, it was kind of harrowing. It's like, but it's beautiful. So it's about Brian grew up in Ohio, in poverty. He was a Black man, he's gay, and he's just like dealing with all of this and there was violence in his life, and he just like couldn't be honest about who he was. And it's sort of tragic to read, but you see this progression over time, and it's just really beautiful. So yeah, that's all I got.
All right. Allie. Amanda is just dying to hear what your favorite adaptation is. You're muted, sorry.
You'd think I would have learned how to use Zoom by now. Big Little Lies. I actually haven't read the book, and I won't, because I just loved the show so much. But I also kind of love anything that involves Nicole Kidman and Reese Witherspoon. I just kind of wish I could be like the type A Reese Witherspoon character. Like I just wish that was me, but it is so not. Let's see, is this I'm torn on my last pick. I'm gonna do this one. So Hour of the Witch.
You can do two if you want.
Oh, I can do, okay, I will do two. I'll be quick. Hour of the Witch by Chris Bajalian just came out this week. Cat. So It is another one of my subgenres, which is Puritans. I love any book that has to do with Puritans. This one is a mystery thriller. Speaking of adaptations, Flight Attendant is also quite good. This is actually the first of his books that I have read, and I was pretty pleasantly surprised. It is the first book by a white man that I've read in, I think, maybe a year. And I really enjoyed it. Somehow I was not hating him for writing about a woman in Puritan New England trying to divorce her husband. There is some brutality. It's a little bit rough in that sense. But he also has some really fantastic details about Puritan New England. It's really well researched. He sums it up in, I can't remember if it's the acknowledgements or, I think it's the acknowledgements. He says something about how he really enjoyed his research process because he's always felt connected to the Puritans because of like their crazy anxiety, and it allowed him to kind of like understand more about himself. And I totally feel that I've never been able to like figure out why I love the Puritans, but I think it's because they're completely insane. But beyond all of that, beyond the historical fiction, it's just a good, well plotted thriller. It's twisty. It's not too predictable. It's really fun. And then the other one I wanted to talk about, I have not yet finished, is Night Bitch. Has anybody else read it yet? I need to finish it. But woman, I'm still pretty early, but I just kind of know that it's something that I am going to fall in love with once I finally find the time to finish it. It is about a woman who begins to turn into a mother who begins to turn into a dog at night. That's a horrible summary of it. It's about motherhood, which I'm all about. It's visceral, it's intense, it's like exactly what you want out of this kind of a book. It reminds me so far of The Need, which was one of my favorites from a couple years ago, and I'm just really enjoying it.
Yeah, Amanda, Christie just pointed out, Amanda recommended that when she was on a couple months ago, or a month, 2 years ago, 10 years ago, however long it's been. But yeah, it's shot up right up to the top of my list. So thank you for talking about that one. I think Christie, I think you're gonna round it out. You're the headliner.
I have my next pick is a forthcoming book. It's called Animal by Lisa Todayo. My copy's in the car, and the car is at a Little League baseball game, but picture it. It's so good. It's so gripping. It's dark. Every single scene is so perfectly rendered. Lisa Todayo can write so well. I feel like when I would read it late at night, and I would feel like I was in the canyon, like the heat. And I've never really even spent any time in California. Like the protagonist, she's running from something, and she's looking for this woman, and there's hints of violence, and the voice is totally unforgettable. It's chilling. And I all along, I don't need sympathy for my female characters. I don't need that, but I had it. And part of it was such a trick that Lisa Todayo was able to pull off. This main character, she's so specific and so memorable. I feel like I still think about the book like once a day, and I read it late into the night. It's fierce. Oh, there it is. Oh, thank you, Lord. It is so good. I mean, it's going to be, in my mind, it's going to be as explosive as Three Women was, but a totally different genre, a totally different thing. I think Lisa Todayo is such a virtuoso, and people are going to be talking about. I've already made my book club. We're doing it in July. And I'm kind of excited. I think it's going to be some people are going to be shocked by some of of some of the scenes are upsetting. I love that, but I didn't really hit on that with some of my book club members, but it's totally unforgettable. And it is a page turner, a total page turner.
Lauren, I feel like we have to have you on at some point after. We have to have your own show, I think, or we can get a couple of.
Except honestly, these people were like the best people ever. And Christie,
Oh, they are.
Come work for you any day.
Okay, I'm gonna start my store.
Christie needs a store.
You can have
like a
mine.
desk.
Yeah, please do that, Christie.
New Hampshire.
We need more bookstores in Chicago.
All the books that you recommended. You're amazing.
You're a natural. You are a natural. We're going to go a little over. I want to ask you guys one more question, and we sort of talked about it in the green room earlier. Hannah, tell me, is there, and we can't read everything, is there an author that you want to read, and like based on what you know or what you think you know or what you've heard, that you would like to just jump in and read everything by them?
Shoot, I don't know.
No shame here. You haven't read them, it's okay.
There's got to be something. I thought you were going to go a different direction, so I have other authors popping into my head. Like, I'm going to go like, I don't know, but because what I'm thinking about is Kazuo Ishiguro, who like every book I read, I freaking love, and I'm always surprised. Like I'm like, this sounds really different. This can't be that good. Like when I read The Buried Giant, which you're like,
yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, like who wants to read about, I don't know, medieval England? Oh, it doesn't sound that exciting to me. But
Sleeping Dragon.
I mean, it was so good. Yes,
yeah, it was amazing.
So that's a totally different answer. That's just like an author. Every time I read him, I'm like, I love this. I don't know. Go to somebody else. Maybe I'll think.
All right, Allie.
I feel like I just had this conversation with someone, and it was I can't remember who it was about. This is a hard question.
I can tell you that I've never read Flannery O'Connor until I'm a part of a short story book club that meets every other Monday, and I finally read my first Flannery O'Connor short story, and I was blown away. What was I doing with my entire life?
Which one did you read?
Oh, I forget. What was remember the short story that we read for that Flannery O'Connor? Oh yeah, Good Man is Hard to Find.
So good.
So
yeah. I mean, just ridiculous good. So I'm gonna go back and read some more.
I feel bad because I have thought of someone, but it's more of, I don't want to talk shit about any of the authors, but there's an author that I thought I was going to love her. Like I was like kind of saving it up. I was like, I'm going to love this so much. This sounds right up my alley.
This is a better question. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And is it okay if I say it?
I think it's
other
okay.
people love her. I mean, she does really well. Me saying it wasn't for me, I think won't hurt her. Rachel Cusk. Like I was just like, this is going to be so me. And maybe it was like the wrong time to read it, but I was just like, I don't.
Really funny because that was like the only author that I could think of, but I've always been just like really reluctant to read her because I kind of need plot. And I don't feel like she has much plot, but her new one, what is
I know it just came out.
Called? It just came out. It has the subtitles like
what's
A
the new
Fable.
Rachel Cusk? Second Place.
Yeah, I hear that there's plot there. So I'm considering reading it.
That might be the way to go.
Yeah. And then I'll read the rest and be disappointed that
and she's one I've never read before.
I never read anything by her so much.
Yeah.
I have a friend, a bookseller friend who will not be named, who won't read the new one because of the font. It is sans serif.
Wait, yeah, I
noticed
noticed
a huge
that.
Fan.
It's crazy.
Why
would they do that?
I don't know. But he's such a huge fan of hers, but he will not refuses to read it because of the sans serif.
Don't they know that sans serifs are for digital publishing?
Oh my God. How about you, Christie?
Very snappy.
This is such a funny question. Just this week, I was thinking about what are the memoirs that I have just never read, that where are the gaps? And so for the first time ever this week, I picked up David Eggers' heartbreaking work of Staggering Genius.
Genius, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like this would have been. I love it, and I get it, but I feel like it's a real book of the moment. It feels like whenever it came out, it would have been a lot more electrifying, and I'm happy to fill in that gap in my memoir education. But I think by the time, like, it's been like so hyped and it's so referred to so often, and I'm sure so much of what I've read has been influenced by him. There's no doubt, and I'm trying to remember as I'm reading, like, he was the first person to do this. He was the first person. I mean, I don't even know if that's true, but probably read a lot fresher when it was published. And I'm glad I'm reading it, and I'm sort of, I can't decide if the cleverness is working for me on balance. I mean, David Eggers doesn't need me to like opine about him, but I think there's enough tenderness there for me that I think I'm all in.
Chrissy, it's funny. I was just talking about Eggers with a customer, and she was like, "I can't do it. He's not for me." And I'm like, I'm actually like, this is like, I don't know if I should be embarrassed about this, but I like love him. Like everything I've read of him, I'm like, I love this guy. But we were talking about how like it's maybe a generational thing. Like he, like really, I think just the age I was when his books started coming out, like, I kind of like idolized him, and like that felt really fresh. And so I think it like still speaks to like a younger me in some ways, like to his style. And the customer I was talking to, she was like a little bit old. She was like kind of like a generation older than me. And she was just like, yeah, I think he drives me nuts. I can't deal with him. So maybe it's just like a time of life when you read it or whatever.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think too, like there's such a I don't even know the right word for it. I'm going to prove I'm not his thing. Like there's a hipness to it. There's a cool factor that I'm just like, he would have had nothing but scorn for me, like I'm positive. And so there's like this feeling of like, ooh, I would have never been on his inner circle. But that's like my own like self-consciousness as I'm reading, evaluating my own coolness. But that's a little distracting to me. But that's my issue.
You're pretty cool. But when I read the first, I loved the first half of that book, and I just lost interest halfway through, to be honest. And I think his, speaking to what Hannah said, I think that there's a memoirs back then where when that was published, it took up a small section of your store. Now, memoirs and essays, everyone's writing something these days. And so it was written during a different time. And I think it had such an impact back then. Like everybody was reading that book, and I didn't, and it took me a few years to read it. And I kind of understand why, like Hannah, why he's pretty cool. And I did, when a few years after that came out, we did an event with him here in Chicago, and he was one of the coolest guys. Like I didn't like him, and I met him, and he was really awesome. And then I read more of his stuff, and it's, I mean, you guys can attest to this. Like when you meet an author, when you've read their stuff or you haven't read it yet, it changes the way you think about them and how you read them and whether you're going to talk about them. So, yeah. He's got that new thing coming out, the sequel to The Circle.
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, and it's being put out by, you can't get it through distributors. It's like through one specific, whoever's publisher is, and they're doing these crazy covers to it. I just announced it a couple days ago, but yeah. This was great, you guys. I hope you guys had a lot of fun, and
it was fun.
It was really awesome hearing you guys talk about books you're crazy about, and maybe we'll have you guys on again. But thanks everyone for tuning in, and once again, Allie, if you want, can you tell people where to buy books?
Oh yeah. So we also have a website. It is stillnorthbooks.com, or happy to always take orders over the phone, over email, hello@stillnorthbooks.com. But yeah, thank you. This was super
All
fun.
right. Yeah. Thanks. Thank you guys so much. And if there's anything we can do for you guys, let us know, please. And Christie, I'll talk to you soon, I'm sure.
That sounds great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Okay. Of
Yeah,
course.
thanks for having
Thanks.
me.
Thank you.
Have a great night. Sorry. Have a good night, you